CEO, founder of thinkLaw, and we are looking at Lesson 7, The Plate and the Mean Friend. This lesson involves some very interesting extensions of legal rules and really pushes students to get to the very uncomfortable place where they're called to make very tough decisions, extending what we already have learned about battery. One of the key themes of thinkLaw is actually demonstrated in Common Core Standard Writing 1, where we talk about how do you make claims and use reasons and relevant evidence to support those claims. It's a big piece of any sort of persuasive and argumentative writing, but in cases that we're doing like today's, where we're really extending the realm of what we've looked at in the past, it becomes highly applicable to what we're doing. So the structure for this lesson is we're looking at a real life case where the court purposely chose not to follow the law as written. Right? They dug a little bit deeper into that law that was right in front of them. And it's a really good example of kind of setting the theme of what needs to happen sometimes when you're looking at problems that don't really fit neatly. Round hole, square peg sorts of issues. So we're going to refresh our thinkers on what the elements of battery are, refresh them about the stick and the chair case. And as a note, sometimes you have students that are not part of every single lesson in thinkLaw. thinkLaw is purposefully designed so that should not matter. So whether or not students have received all of these lessons in the past, they should be able to pick up lesson 7 and still be able to start and have a really great time participating in this activity. So then we're going to analyze this plate case. We're going to rank the conduct of the defendants in the chair case, the stick case, and the plate case from worst to best, which is also a very interesting activity. And we'll evaluate the legal rule from the plate case and look and see whether that rule from the plate case should be extended to the mean friend, which is a case involving cyberbullying. Quick note, this is one of those lessons where it's really important that students do not look ahead. So please have that reminder. Make sure they don't look ahead because it's like spoiling the end of a great movie. So just have them, be disciplined and not look forward when they're doing this. If you're using a physical workbook, the way to do that is just to kind of have the students fold it over one page at a time. If you're using the ebook, just have them stay at one page at a time as they're going through it. So we start out about this case about the U.S. Postal Service. Very interesting one. It got all the way up to the United Supreme Court, where a police officer was convicted for arresting a mailman that was suspected of murder because he technically broke a statute. So we use that case as an opening to talk about the fact that, sometimes courts decide to extend the legal rule a little bit because they have a bigger public policy goal that's broader than what was just put in that rule. That becomes really important when we look at the plate case. So after we review the chair and the stick case, we look at the plate case where a guy is basically suing because he was the victim of a discriminatory act where somebody snatched the plate out of his hand because of his race. He said he couldn't eat this plate because of his race. This case becomes interesting because he sued for battery. And a lot of kids have an easy time, or adults or anyone has an easy time understanding how falling from a chair could be a real issue. Or getting hit in the eye with a stick could be a big issue. But somebody snatching a plate out of your hand sounds a little bit different, right? So we start out this by actually ranking our defendants, looking at the 5-year-old boy, looking at the man who threw the stick, and looking at Robert, the man who actually snatched the plate out of George Fisher's hand in this case, and ranking them. Very interesting activity to figure out why some of your thinkers rank folks as the worst or the best based off of those 3 cases. Very great to have them analyze and explain their justifications for those rankings. And then we actually subject the plate case to the rules of battery. What you'll find is that, a lot of your thinkers will be comfortable with the idea of intent, but contact is a little bit iffy because he didn't seem to touch him directly. It's probably offensive, right? It needs to be harmful or offensive, so it's probably offensive, but then the damages also seem a little bit questionable. So we have some really good probing questions here in the instructor's notes where we talk about, how we want to rank the defendants, and also how do we really kind of push this idea of whether or not there were damages here. Would it be okay, for instance, once we kind of get to this next page and we're talking emotionally about it, right? A lot of times we talk about critical thinking as separate from the emotions of it. But A really effective critical thinker is at least conscious of the fact that their emotions do play a role in their decision-making process. Their biases do play a role in their decision-making process. So really important to actually spend the time going through these questions. Maybe students don't have to write these out, but having that as a class discussion, or maybe even having them discuss these questions as part of small groups or with a neighbor, could be a good tool in actually starting to form their opinions a little bit more deeper to understand what their public policy goals might be in looking at this. Because maybe just like that mailman police officer case, you might need to change your understanding of the battery rule a little bit to get the desired outcome that you're looking for. The big piece of this case is talking about the world, the public policy. What would the world look like if it would be okay to snatch a plate out of somebody's hand and tell them they couldn't eat somewhere because of their race? Now, just talking about the way we look at personal space in our society, snatching things out of people's hands might be somewhat of an issue, right? Like that, I could see that causing a lot of fights or, leading to a bigger issue that we might see. So maybe we don't want to have a world where that is an okay act to do. So another question is whether or not, even if it's not okay, if we really want to sue somebody for battery because of it. It's one thing if somebody's getting hit in the eye or seriously hurt, but should this be a battery? And the way that we actually push our thinkers is to rank the world they prefer to live in. Would they prefer to live in a world where you could snatch somebody's plate out of their hands and they couldn't be sued for battery? Or one where snatching somebody's plate out of their hand was something that was comparable to actually touching them for battery purposes? Interesting thing here is when we talk about the battery rules, it doesn't say that you contact somebody in a way that's going to cause them serious damage necessarily, right? Even some damages would suffice. It seems in this case, there's some evidence that his reputation might have been damaged if he's getting called out in front of all of his peers in his professional environment and said he can't eat. That could be really embarrassing to his professional reputation. So the idea of damages is a little bit more flexible than we might think initially. When we get to think evaluation, we actually lay out what the court decided. The court decided that if some things are so attached to your body that they could be considered part of your body. Like if you had a book or a cane or a purse, those things would be considered so much of part of your body that snatching that is just like snatching you. So the court actually found that this was a battery. So we take this concept and we take it one step further into the mean friend case, which basically looks at this idea of somebody on social media that was cyberbullied on social media and ended up committing suicide. And we ask this question: could the people that did this to this girl be considered liable for battery? Looking at the elements of battery. This is a great activity to use draw plus C analysis for. I've seen some instructors and trainers actually have this as a take-home assignment for folks, where they actually reflected upon it, wrote something on it, made it into a homework assignment in some cases, because there is a lot about what happened in this case and evidence you could look at that can apply to the bigger picture of battery in a way that's so far beyond where we went when we first learned about battery in that chair case. But again, this is the reason why we started out lesson 2 with the candy store, talking about legal synthesis. How do you adjust your outcomes when the facts shift on you? So, in a nutshell, that's lesson 7. We're going to move right on into lesson 8. Thank you.